Hello, how's it going? My name is Bonnie Violet. I'm a queer chaplain, and in case you don't know where you are at Dragon Spirituality, Gender Diverse. As part of our summer series, we are on episode 4 with Nancy Nogood, who is out of Brooklyn, and we'll bring her on here in a minute. But I did want to take a second to just, yeah, do the things that you do when you get started. So, first of all, I want to say thank you to my Patreon members. I'll run them down the bottom there a little bit. For folks who don't know what Patreon is, Patreon's a way that you can support this work on a monthly basis. The link is in the description. You can give anywhere from $3 to like $20 a month or something like that if you like to support the work of a queer chaplain. This is brought to you by the Dragon Spirituality Summit, which is going to be taking place October 7th through 9th in Chicago. So you can go to dragonspirituality.com to get registered. We are looking to book 36 drag artists as well as panelists and keynote speakers for this 3-day summit. So our deadline is this Sunday, the 14th. So do click on that link soon and submit. We would love to have you be a part of the show and the summit. All right. I'm going to go ahead and not keep us in suspense too much longer. I'm gonna go ahead and bring to the stage um Nancy Nogood. Hey
Oh my
love.
gosh, hello.
Hello, how are you?
Wonderful. Just, having a Wednesday, having a great time. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, thank you so much. This has been a long time coming.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I have been I've been very much looking forward to this, and I'm so glad when you finally reached out, and I was just like so excited. So, yeah, this
Right.
is I'm very excited to dish.
Yes, me too. So excited to have you. I am not good at foreplay, so I always like to just get right in there.
Oh, please dive right in.
Right? So I usually like to hear a little bit about like what was life like for, I guess little Nancy or, what
hmm
was life like as a little one and what was spirituality like for you growing up?
Oh my goodness. It's almost like what was life growing up? What would have life been growing up without spirituality? It was such an
Mm,
integral part of my life growing up. I grew up in a very small, conservative um, community of Southern Catholics. And so it was very much, I grew up in South Carolina, and 3% of the population is Catholic. So for us, being in a community was just made it that much more important, and being around other people, like-minded people, made it that much more important. So I went to Catholic school my entire life, and I was surrounded by Catholic families, and we saw each other at church, and et cetera, et cetera. And it was such an important part of growing up. And for me, because of that, I was like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So from as young as 8 years old, I was like, I'm going to go be a priest in the Catholic Church. And I was studying doctrine, and I mean, from such a young age, I wanted to know as much as I possibly could. And
mhm,
that was all fine and dandy. And then I started to come out, and I started to realize that I was gay, and all of those things. And kind of as that ball started rolling in that direction, obviously how that clashed with my Catholic identity and what that meant for me,
mhm.
just carved its own path, and that carved its own story. And so that was my upbringing, and it's kind of led me to where I am now today.
Yeah. And at what age were you kind of realizing your sexuality and like what age did that start to kind of conflict for you with your spirituality?
Totally. So I would say, I mean, like, as soon as I started to realize it, right? As soon, because I mean, one thing that I knew, and I know, at least for Catholicism, homosexuality is like, that isn't like, sexuality is in the bedrock of the church's teaching. And so to have this like inkling of an idea, of a realization, I mean, almost immediately I was like, oh, this isn't good. Like, I
Mhm.
and I think it took me a while to um I mean, as young as like 11, I think that's when I had my first memory of like, oh, right. And so almost immediately I was starting to realize, oh, there's something here, and
Mhm.
this isn't, these don't connect. And it wasn't until it kept moving on and on as I realized what that would lead to.
Hmm. And yeah, I mean, I guess how did you kind of like deal with that as you got a little bit older, but you were still like say young in high school, and you sounds like you were surrounded and like just engulfed in Catholicism and people who practice that. How did you
Hmm.
like I don't know, cope with that or go through that?
Oh yeah, so one of the things that I'm incredibly grateful for, and I have a twin
Mm,
who also lives in Brooklyn as well, and they are a non-binary person, and so for both of us to be queer people and to know that about each other, and we really came out to each other in high school, and I think I wouldn't have been nearly as brave or as confident
mm,
in trying to be more who I am back then up through now if it wasn't for having another like someone else standing next to me the whole time, knowing exactly what I was dealing with and knowing that I was someone that they could rely on and vice versa. So that's like the biggest thing that helps me with that. Um and just through that, I mean, it was kind of a domino effect. And as soon as, I'm really lucky that you know, f- obviously some people it did not take well at all and continues to not. But for that small amount of people, there are so many other people in my life who, when I finally started coming out and realized, oh, I want to come out and I would rather come out versus continue a life of Catholicism and continue this trajectory towards the priesthood. Um, when as more and more people were like, that's amazing, or that's incredible, or I support you, it just got easier and easier, and I felt like I could be more myself, and that was, that's the best thing, right? And so having that is what helped me. But
mm.
yeah, and also having a twin who's gay, that's just like really convenient.
Right. I know, like what a gift that was, huh?
I mean, it really it is a gift every day. It really is.
Mhm.
They're an amazing person.
There's a couple folks who are saying hello and love you on Facebook.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
hey lovies from Nashville. If folks have their I guess their if they're not if they have private accounts, then we can't tell who they are. So it just says Facebook user, but
Oh,
but it is
well,
two different
hello,
people.
Nashville.
Yeah, so glad that you could join us. I'm pretty sure that Nashville is Veronica Electronica, who's going to be on the show here in a couple of weeks.
Oh, amazing. Amazing.
Yes, yes. So when did you first hear about, or like when did you first see drag, and what was your impression?
The first time I saw drag, the first time I saw drag was RuPaul, and it was so I don't know if you know of the music, if you're a fan of musical theater. I'm very much a theater gay, and
Mm,
there's a musical called Zombie Prom that is it's cute. It's a great like community theater show. Oh my gosh, hi Haley, hi. um
I
it's
love.
like a fun community theater show, and the the show had a short film version of it,
Mhm.
and one of the leads in that movie, in that short film version, was RuPaul in drag, and so that was my first experience of drag. It's incredibly campy, as you probably can imagine.
Right.
um, and so that was my first foray into drag. um, you know I guess digitally, but then in person. I don't know if this is like this outside of the South, but
Mhm.
all the gay bars were 18 and up, and I found a gay bar when I was 18, and I went to them, as much as I could, and I remember seeing my first drag show in person and being like just enamored at the spectacle of it all, and it was like they treated it like American Idol. It was like crazy, and I was just like, this is incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Reverend Diana also says hi in San Francisco. She says thank you for the amazing ministry. Um,
Thank you.
yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, like, I'm really curious so did drag and your like, I guess what did you end up doing with Catholicism as I don't know, like I know you said there was kind of this conflict, but was there a time when you like separated or?
So it's fascinating. I mean, one thing, so with Catholicism, I would say it's a constant push and pull. Not in a way of like I want to, sell all my drag and renounce all of this kind of push and
Mhm.
pull. But one thing that is like real big coming out of organized religion can be guilt and shame. And I would say that's probably the biggest push and pull. And through the years since I came out and since I moved to New York City, I moved to New York in 2013 after college, and coming here and different milestones, like my partner when we met, over 4 years ago now, and different moments of my life that have helped me um be able to detach from that guilt and shame. That's been a very slow journey, a slow journey of rewiring,
Mhm.
and so, but through that, I've also been tried to find, is it worth going back to a church, or is there a worth in that? Because the feeling that I got from being a part of a community like the Catholic Church, and the feeling that I got of finding some sort of sanctity and some sort of like sanctuary, was something that I I loved. It was like one of my favorite parts of it all, right? And finding
Mhm.
that sense of being seen and being accepted and loved, and that was like something that I wish I could have found elsewhere. And so
Mhm.
I would say since then it's been like, okay, where can I find that? And so I think that's the greater journey that I'm experiencing now, is how can I find that sense of spirituality again?
Mhm.
And where can I find that? And what does that look like? And there's, and that's fun. I mean, I've always loved learning about religions. I think that's one thing that's, very, I think that's a very, I feel like that's a very like gay child thing, is like I
Mhm.
loved learning about religions and like different religions growing up. Personally, I love like cults, which,
Mhm.
like totally isn't what I want to find myself in, but
Right.
it's a lovely topic to learn about and study.
Mhm.
So I've always been very interested in what moves a community of people and what
Mm.
brings a community of people together.
Yeah.
And there are parts of the Catholic Church that I still very much admire, and there are a lot of things that I learned that I'm glad I learned, and I guess pillars of certain pillars, moral pillars that I respect from the Catholic Church.
Mhm.
Obviously not all of them, but there are certain, I think, broader ones that I appreciate, and want to seek out via other more accepting religions.
Right. So do you currently, like, either intentionally or maybe just kind of thinking about, do you have any sort of spiritual rituals or spiritual activities that you do to connect with, I don't know, whatever your understanding of spirituality is?
Right. I would say I'm still figuring out what that looks like in a more organized fashion. From that, I love tarot reading.
Mhm.
I think, one of my favorite things about Catholicism was prayer, and I think I don't necessarily want to. I'll say this: Catholics love props. Catholics love props, be it rosaries, be it scapulars. There's plenty of like different little fun items that
Mhm.
Catholics enjoy. And I think from that, I have really grown to love other things to appreciate. Like I have um, candles that I really love, different tarot cards and like tarot readings that I really enjoy, and finding connection through spirituality from there. Yes, props. Sorry, we had just a Facebook
Yes.
user. Um, and then what was I gonna say? Props. Oh, and then my partner, he loves crystals and rocks, and I love finding the meanings and values behind those, and how I can just find a connection through those. I would say that
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of where I'm at currently, and it's what's working for now. And I think that's one thing that I love about it is keeping the journey personal,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I find the most peace, is keeping it personal for me. So
Right. So it sounds like you have a partner, and it sounds like there might be some, I guess, shared spiritual connection. Is that?
yeah, yeah, definitely. I would say it's nothing too formalized, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, definitely we definitely have a shared connection for spirituality, and finding meaning behind that, and towards that,
Mm-hmm.
and looking towards that. Um, I think I think that extends more towards, or that can also extend towards the ideas of, like, what is like, it's very like, we also watched Everything Everywhere All at Once
Oh,
earlier
I
this year.
love that.
It's like
So good.
one of the best movies of all time, I may
Mm-hmm.
show. But one of the things that I got from that movie when I saw it was like how tiny we are, and even if you don't believe in a multiverse, just how tiny we are in the universe grand scheme of things, and what is there meaning behind that? What is the meaning behind that? And what is beyond this? And what is around us? And thinking about that in that broader sense,
Mm-hmm.
and finding, looking for, is there connection? Uh, Do we have a connection in all of that? And finding some sort of stillness in that, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm thinking of, and finding in that presence. And that's been really helpful. And I think, we he and I used to have a lot of arguments about, like, multiverse theory, and then I saw that movie, and then I was like starting to understand more of what he was thinking of, like, everything is so big, everything is so expansive. um you know it's all we can do to just lead with love, and be loving people, and
Mm-hmm.
being loving people to those around us is, like, at the least what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that's kind of one of the biggest spiritual takeaways that we share. So
Yeah, that
yeah.
sounds fantastic. I think there's so much like trauma and so much like negative experiences that queer folks have had. So
Yes,
I think it's great when you can find anyone who's willing to kind of like, be willing just to even broach the subject with you.
absolutely, absolutely.
And about your drag, how has that intercepted with your relationship? I know oftentimes on the shows people talk about how drag might affect their relationships. Do you mind talking about that?
Yeah, with my partner, or with,
Hmm.
like, spirit. Yeah, I mean, when we started dating, I told him that I was a drag queen. And I mean, when I started doing drag in 2015, I remember going on dates, and it was like the complete opposite. Like, there were guys that I would go on dates on. I was like, oh, I'm gonna tell them I'm a drag, and it's fine. And I would say it, and then, like, that would be the last date. And then there would be
Hmm.
guys that I would go on dates with, and I'd be like, I'm so nervous to tell this person I'm doing drag. And then they would be like, oh, tell me everything. That's so interesting. And when I started dating my partner now, Dylan, when we started dating, yeah, I told him I did drag, and that was actually our second date. Was he came to one of my shows, so he was very interested, and he was, like, interested in what I did, and what it was, and I think that was exciting, and I'm glad he loves it, and he's
Hmm.
incredibly supportive. And he of our third roommate, I'll say, it's us two and Nancy, kind of thing. So
Oh, uh-huh.
he's very grateful that I let Nancy have her own closet. So, or he's very supportive of that.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, the three of you get along just fine.
Just fine.
That's awesome. This series it's titled Gender Diverse. So I would love to hear a little bit about what comes to mind when you talk about gender, whether that's related to your drag or just I guess your day to day.
Oh my gosh.
Haley loves Dylan too.
Oh, yes, Haley. Haley, hi Haley. She's a friend of mine from Detroit, who's also a drag queen, who
Awesome.
we I can talk more about this later, but I wrote a show, a kind of originally a one-woman show that's turned into like two-women show with small ensemble drag musical about growing up religious and
Oh,
finding community. And but anyway, I'll do that later. But
okay.
drag and gender. So I identify as gender fluid, and it's because I was it's because I started doing drag that helped me come to that realization. When I started doing drag, before I started doing drag, I was like, I um I love who I am as a person, but I don't necessarily identify as cisgender, and I don't know what it is past that, because it's not that I am like, I want to completely reject my gender identity, but I don't think I want to necessarily um, uh, see myself as only this. And I
Right.
feel like there was something else there. And I think that also stems from growing up, religious and Southern, and what does that look like? An example of like, what are you allowed to present as your person? Like the idea of like gender as a presentation, and what does that masculinity look like? That presentation of masculinity. And when I did gender, like my drag is very feminine, and that's what I love about my drag is the femininity of it all,
Hmm.
and really creating this like very outrageously feminine woman, and throwing that against the wall. And I think when I did that, I was realizing, oh, like this is I found an identity that was deeper than just the performance of it all.
Mm.
And I found an identity that was deeper than what I like brought to gigs and stuff. And that was exciting. It felt like something had clicked. And I
Mm.
I think I was talking to a friend of mine, a trans woman. This is an incredible woman, and I was talking to her about it. And we were talking about how it's when you have that click, that moment, and you're like, oh, this is my gender identity. And you're like, oh, why did I, like, you can't unclick, you can't like unthink of that.
Hmm.
And when I realized, oh, I'm gender fluid, I find excitement in masculinity, and I find excitement in an identity in femininity. And I don't like to sit in the middle of that. I like to move on either end. And I love to, I I out of drag, I use he or she pronouns. And I guess they is fine, but I feel like I don't find myself attached to they, because I really love being in like he or she land.
Hmm.
Um and I like finding that kind of solid footing for me personally, right?
Right.
Um and so, yeah, I think that was what was exciting to me, is that drag provided for me, like so many trans and non-binary people, is drag provided me an opportunity to explore all of these questions I had about what my gender was, and helping me coming to terms with what my gender is, who I am, and
Hmm.
and when the drag is off, and who am I when all of that goes away, kind of thing, which
Right.
is fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally relate to that. And I've a few of the folks we've talked to very much, talk about that idea of like, and I know for me, what drag gave me was like, it was like, it was a role, and it was almost like I had an excuse. Like I had an excuse
Yeah,
to like try on clothes this way and to be sexy that way. And you know what I mean? And it almost gave me like permission, if you will.
yeah.
I also felt safer in it initially. And maybe that's because I identify as trans femme, that like there was some sort of safety in that moment, I guess, of kind of exploring things.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's what drag offered for me, right? Was like that safety and that ability to continue to dive deeper. And I mean, even now, like I feel like I'm able to dive deeper, and it's given me safety, and it's given me permission. Yes, Facebook user permission. Thank you. It's
Right.
given me permission to do it outside of drag. And I feel like, especially this year, I found myself um, looking at what my gender expression could be outside of drag, and what does that look like, because it can be ever changing, right? we're
Hmm.
we're we're not meant to be static. We're constantly learning and discovering who we are, and that's what makes us people.
Right, right. That's kind of like the gift of like identities, and also I guess, limitations sometimes of a
Yes.
identity. Sometimes you can get stuck in that, and then if you, like you said, if you don't, I know I often pick identities that I don't like. I say I'm a trans femme genderqueer. Like, what the fuck is that? But like, I feel like it's the closest thing for me to put into words how I see myself or how I want to be seen.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Or how I want to like attempt to present even, you know what I mean? Like just
Mhm.
to like try to, I don't know, explore. Again, because I put those words out as part of my identity, it almost creates these like boundaries or these I don't know, these spaces that I get to kind of like live in a little bit until I could, find more of myself, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fully. I used to do a lot more. I love working with like in education and like working with students and working with young people. And I remember I worked with these high schoolers. I worked with this one particular group, and there were a couple of kids in that group, and they had like every single day I saw them. It was twice a week, and every single day a couple of them had like a different set of pronouns each time I saw
Mhm.
them. And every time I was like, yes, you give me a new identity tomorrow. Like I live for this. Like keep
Mhm.
trying, keep figuring it out, keep doing something different, because that's how we find confidence in who we are, by just like trying it out and seeing what makes us happiest, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
like liberate yourself, there's I think that's why people are so I think that's why people have such strong opinions or
Mhm.
responses to like drag artists. And
Yeah.
it's because I think there's either like an enviness or a jealousy or but there's also some people are just like so in awe of it because I think it feels so far beyond th- how they could live or exist. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely. I find when I started doing drag, I had friends of mine or people that were it was interesting. I had people who my relationship with them changed, and it wasn't in a bad way necessarily. It was just they saw what drag meant to me, and what drag meant to my identity, and like to my gender identity or to my sexuality, and how that changed. And I think that they were like, oh, that's something I'm
Mm,
interested in myself, or something. And I think that's exciting, right? And
mm,
that's exciting to see how I can, not necessarily explicitly and overtly help them, but how
mhm.
can what I do grant a visibility that is important to them?
Yeah, yeah. What's something about drag that has surprised you, whether that's like how it's impacted you or how it's impacted other people?
Um, I think one thing that surprised me about drag, which um, growing up, I didn't realize, was that drag makes me more approachable to some people.
Mm,
Some people not at all, right? It doesn't. And I would say that's less of an instance of what I find. More so, people find me more approachable when I'm
mhm,
in drag, because I'm giving off, I assume, an energy that is kind and unprovoking, and because I have that approachable energy, it makes people want to be, engaged and happy, and want to discuss and want to talk. And um that's definitely exciting to me, and that's something that I that's one of my favorite parts of drag.
mhm.
Is I don't want to say like drag is a monolith, but I
Right.
think that one thing as drag artists to remember is that you are a face for your community, right? A very fabulous one, but you are
Mhm,
very external face for the queer community. And you take that as you will. That means a lot of different things. And for me, that means that gives me a chance to talk to people, and to talk to people maybe from where I'm from, or people who might not necessarily um, understand what drag can do and how drag can be helpful.
mhm.
And that's really exciting. I think that's one of my favorite parts of it.
Yeah. Just to kind of go to the other end of the spectrum, is there anything what about drag maybe don't you like?
What about drag don't I like?
If anything.
Other than that, it's like painful and expensive. But
Right?
what about drag I don't like? I don't know. I really You
Or
know,
wish was different maybe? I don't
I
know.
would say this. I would say, you know, I was thinking about this earlier today. And I was talking to a friend of mine. You know, I wouldn't be doing what I do, and I wouldn't find as much ease. It's still not easy at all. Drag is, I think, seen as a very low form of art or
Mm,
expression, um, even now. But that said, it wouldn't be nearly as smooth of a process if it weren't for like Drag Race and, you know, RuPaul and Dragula and all of those things.
mhm,
I think I wish that it was a little bit easier. Still, that said, you know, I'm this is my career. This is who I am as a person,
right.
and I am, you know, I'm an actor and a writer, and I'm a drag artist, and drag is my lens for storytelling. And I
Mhm.
wish that it was. I wish that I could find it to be a little more accessible.
Not just an
Um,
acquired taste.
Yeah, yeah, a little. And I feel like sometimes I have to make my work a little more palatable
Mhm,
to bring in people, which I totally
yeah.
understand in some ways. And then in other ways, I'm like, come on, you know, like, come
Right, right. You
on
can only
in.
change so much before you potentially lose yourself, you know?
Exactly. You can only change so much before you lose yourself. And I, you know, drag is what helps me find myself. And so
Mhm.
I'm not changing her, you know. So
Yeah. Well, it sounds like so you mentioned this musical about your life growing up, and it sounds like there's this integration of spirituality, of like loving musicals as a young person. Like it sounds like it's all come together. Do you want to tell me a little bit more about how that came about?
yes, absolutely. So the show is called Looking Back Through Stained Glass.
Mhm.
It came about because so way back when I was in college, I went to school for theater and I worked with this performance artist named Tim Miller. And Tim told me um, that if you have a story, I mean, I'm very much paraphrasing because he says a lot of wonderful things, but very much paraphrasing to say, he would say, you know, tell your story. That's a story you should tell. And for me, I was like, okay, I'm going to tell my story. I don't necessarily know what that is. And he worked in this workshop. I did this workshop with him in school, and everyone had to create our own monologues. And my monologue was about the push and pull of my Catholic identity and my queer identity.
Mhm.
And it was the first time I like really expressed this openly, much less on a stage in a performance. And it was literally life changing because when that happened, I was like, how can I do this again? And how can I tell this to as many people as possible?
Mm,
Because selfishly, it was incredibly cathartic, but also it was, you know, I wanted to tell this to other people because I knew I wasn't alone. And
mhm.
so, you know, fast forward to the pandemic, um, my roommate at the time in Brooklyn had moved back to Detroit to start a youth theater in his hometown in Detroit, and he wanted me to work with him. We had worked in theater a lot, and he was like, "I want to commission you to write a show, to write kind of a drag salon." And I was like, "Sure, that sounds exciting, and that gives me something to do." And it turned into because I was like, what can I talk about? And I was like, I really want to talk about this. I really want to talk about, um, you know, growing up uh, Catholic, and kids. Like I grew up Catholic, and I had this beautiful community, and then I came out, and then I lost that community,
Yeah.
and I felt myself floating and grabbing for what my community is now. What is that? What does that look like? And so I kind of wanted it to be this kind of, you know, one woman monologue show moment, and eventually it turned into this idea of a two-person show because I was like, oh, I want to have another queen on stage because thinking a little like pedagogically, I guess, I really
Mhm.
love the art of lip syncing and the art of drag. And I really want to play with what that form looks like and experiment. So
Right.
the show has another drag queen live singing and myself lip syncing all of those words.
Mhm.
So that was another piece to the puzzle. I was like, okay, great. And I want to talk about myself in the show. I want that to be the structure. And then from there, it just really took off. And so I was like, okay, let's give the show a plot. So the show has this plot of Nancy is trying to save her bar that's about to be torn down and turned into a mega church by this like evangelical nightmare of a woman, and she's like the arch villain, and it's turned into this kind of like, in a perfect world, it would be, the two lead characters with like a small ensemble that play all these other minor roles. And we premiered it in Detroit with a full band, and it was very exciting. And then I brought it back to New York City, and I performed it at the top of July with Rose Ritz is the other queen who's in the chat. Hey, queen. And she and I performed the show in Detroit. And then we brought it to New York, and now I am working to find a composer, because now I want to, because it's drag, right? So all the songs are pop songs, and different. There's a through line to them, but they're not my music. So I want to create original music for it now. So now I'm working to find a composer and kind of create the words that come out in the original piece. And so now it's turning into a beautiful show. That's where it is now, and it's a chance for Nancy to show the world what community can look like, and the beauty of community through queer people in drag, and what it means to have a chosen family. And I feel like that as a phrase gets tossed around a lot nowadays, but it really, when it hits, like, it's like real important, and having your chosen family is so absolutely important. And it is a youth show. It is meant for high schoolers, and so that's where it's going in the future. Is my dream is to make this show build out to be as big as I can, financially make it, and take it to schools across the country, take it to community centers across the country, and take it to, the Bible Belt, take it to kids who need to hear this, and create a place for kids to see what community can look like, and if need be, what queer community can look like for the queer kids who see the show. So that's the
You've sold me. You've sold me on it. I want lots of tickets.
Amazing. Perfect.
Yeah.
I'll keep you updated.
Awesome. We're almost at 45 minutes. I wanted to ask you, what would Nancy say to, say, your 11-year-old self, or if you could talk to yourself when you were younger, what's something you would say to yourself?
Don't be so hard on yourself, because if you continue to be like, don't be so hard on yourself about who you are, because it's all going to work itself out in the end. And all that's doing is being unfair to you. And it won't work itself out as much as you would like it to. And it's not the happy ending that you might be looking for 100%, but it is still going to be a wildly wonderful, happy life. So enjoy it and take some dance classes.
Right. Awesome. It's like one of those moments where I felt like I needed to be holding a picture of yourself,
Literally.
for you to be speaking to. I was like, I need one of those little graphics, so it just comes up on my hand, right?
I know, right? Oh my
There
God,
is
yes.
there is somebody in the audience who says they will be calling you. Maybe
All right.
maybe a composer. I don't know.
I don't know. Do you know anyone with money? I love it. I love an executive producer.
Right. There's that too. It takes so much. So I want to make sure that you were able to express or share, whatever you'd like to share this evening. Is there anything else you would like to share that you haven't been able to speak about or would like to re-speak about?
I'll say drag is a wonderful thing, and I feel like you need to hell yeah it was, Haley, hell yeah it was. Drag is a wonderful thing, and spiritually speaking, drag is a beautiful thing. And I say, try to think of, if you can, try to think of your drag self as, someone who is looking out for you, because
Mm.
I think our drag selves are looking out for us. And that's what I like to think of it. And
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly spiritual and beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's such an experience too. It kind of like pulls you out of yourself, huh?
I know, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Like an exorcism of I don't know.
Uh,
I'm getting
that's what
crazy there.
that's what I told my parents. I said when I was a little kid, because I also have an affinity for horror movies, lifelong, always have. And I told my
Mm-hmm.
parents I wanted to be a priest so I could be an exorcist. And they were
Well,
like, let's try something else. But yep, that was,
and look at you now,
look where
right?
she is now.
Totally, totally. Well, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we were able to, do this evening. I've had such a great conversation. I feel like we could talk for days.
Oh, truly, please bring me back anytime. Let's
All right.
kiki.
Yeah, yeah. No, I welcome to have you on again sometime, and maybe you can make it out to the Dragon Spirituality
Oh, yes.
Summit.
The summit in Chicago. Yes. Oh my God. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
yes, yes. Thank you for reminding me, because I keep meaning to submit for it. So thank you so
Yes,
much.
we'd love for you to join us, and for folks who are listening, we have about 4 more days till the 14th. We're looking to try to book all the drag artists and panelists and keynotes. So do try to get it in there. We recently did change the name to Dragon Spirituality Summit due to some trademark things. So but check it out. It's still going to be the same great event taking place in the same great place with the same great people. So please do check out the links in the description, which is dragonspirituality.com. I could put it up on the screen, but yeah, there we go.
Woo!
Woohoo. And I want to invite you all to join me next week for our 5th series of Dragon Spirituality. And I do this every week, but I know who my guest is, but it's not coming to me. So you'll have to check out check out promotions between now and then, and we'll see you next week here at the same time, same place. Or you can listen to us on podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts at Drag and Spirituality. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a good night, Nancy, and ta-ta.
Ta-ta.
Ta-ta. Now I gotta push this button.
Ah.
There we go.